Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Way podcast, where we learn in English poco a poco or podcast by podcast. Today, we're looking at summer fun. So, get your Coca-Cola Zero, get your iced coffee, maybe an ice cream, and let's get into it.
Bienvenido al podcast de The Way. Si quieres aprender inglés y hablar con confianza, estás en el sitio correcto. Hemos ayudado a miles de personas como tú a mejorar su inglés y alcanzar sus objetivos. Visita nuestra web theway.es para conocer más sobre nuestros cursos online desde A2 hasta C1 y descubre cómo podemos ayudarte a avanzar en tu aprendizaje. Además, si necesitas una certificación oficial, también ofrecemos la opción de realizar el examen Language Pair cómodamente desde casa.
So let's start with summer where you are, because obviously summer happens at different times of the year. In the northern hemisphere, it's June, July, August, but maybe you are in the southern hemisphere and it's usually like December, January, February. So let's look at, for example, what does your summer look like? So being in the southeast of Spain, in Murcia, it is scorching hot right now. The temperatures go all the way up to 40, sometimes 42. And if we have to think about the north of Spain, it doesn't get that hot. So take a moment and with just simple vocabulary, think about how you would describe the summer that you experience where you are. Maybe you want to include some vocabulary. So, for example, maybe you have a cool summer. For example, it usually doesn't get that hot in the UK or in the northern countries. Maybe you have a scorching hot summer. So, scorching hot, boiling hot. It just means it's super, super hot, right? But maybe you have like really good, beautiful sunny days. Maybe you live by the beach and it's a little bit better. So try to use your vocabulary in general, maybe about the weather, maybe about what the vibe is of the city. So in Spain and especially in Murcia, in August, the city is dead. Nobody stays in the city because it's so, so hot. So usually people go to the countryside, but majority of people go to the beach. Now let's focus on how to keep your English going, because you spend so much time during the year focusing on your English, trying to improve poco a poco, and then in the summer we forget all of our English y estamos oxidados al principio del año, in September, for example, right? So English shouldn't be work. We don't want it to be extra work. So here are some small ideas, right? For example, put on a favorite series and say, for example, a sitcom, a situational comedy like How I Met Your Mother or Friends, something that you can have in the background while you are washing the dishes or eating your ice cream, something that you can just have the English in the background and something that you are happy to watch. Some people enjoy watching English films in the summer because you can take the time to enjoy it if you have more free time. So either putting a sitcom or I would say a sitcom or a TV series in the background while you are doing other things, or intentionally sit down and watch a film or something like that. You could also just take the time to listen to the radio in English. There are lots of international English radio stations, for example, BBC, that you can listen in English in the car. I personally like to listen to the radio while I'm cleaning the house, and I go out of my way to put it in Spanish so that I can practice listening to Spanish music and the Spanish news, and you can do the same but in English. Another thing that you can do is keep a summer journal. Now, I think that's a fantastic idea, whether you do it in English or in Spanish, and just write a little message that says, today I did this and I bought this ice cream and it was delicious. Just something small that it doesn't take a lot of effort, that you can practice your writing in English, or again, an activity that you could just do in Spanish to make beautiful memories. And the last thing is to listen to all of my podcasts. No, I'm joking. But it is a good idea to try and keep your English going in some sort of way so that you don't get rusty. And rusty is oxidado. Okay, so talking about English, and activities for English, let's look at some summer vocabulary. So we started with weather and temperature. So we're going to look at scorching and boiling, two very strong adjectives to say super, super hot, like demasiado, very, very hot. Then you have words like heat wave. Now, a wave is una ola, and heat is calor. So when we talk about heat wave, it's when the temperature rises drastically, like a lot. So for example, in the UK, usually in summer, maybe the temperature is 25. But then they have a week where they have a heat wave and the temperature is 30. And in the UK, that's very hot, right? So it's temperatures that are high that are not usually so high. And then if we have to talk about the air, you get dry air and humid air. So Murcia, very humid, extremely humid. But if I'm talking about my city in South Africa, Johannesburg, it's a dry summer. Although there's rain, it's not very humid, for example. Usually we have a lot of wind in springtime, but sometimes if you are lucky, you have a little wind, like a flojo wind, and we call that a breeze. And that is so nice at night when you are relaxing and you're opening the doors to get in some fresh air and you get this cool breeze, like a fresh wind, right? It's one of my favorite things at night in the summer is to feel that cool breeze. If we have to look at some clothing, though, so some of my favorite words in English are flip-flops. Flip-flops are chanclas. And then we have different words for like bañador. It depends on the country that you're speaking in English, right? So the general word is swimsuit, right? But we could also say swim shorts for boys. Bikini for girls. In, for example, Australia and South Africa, we call a mono, we call it a costume or a cozy. So it really just depends on where you're at and the country that you're practicing your English in. So you can check in your country. If we're looking at vocabulary for like the pool or the beach, right? So I'm not going to go through the flojo vocabulary like towel or umbrella. That's like normal. I want to look at the more interesting vocabulary, right? For example, a lot of my students don't know what snorkeling is, right? Now, I don't think there's an actual word. I think in Spanish you would say snorkel, but it's not the same as they were like, but ¿qué es eso? And then I'm like, well, it's a type of swimming, but you are looking at the fish. And they were like, oh, bucear. I'm like, diving is under the water. For example, scuba diving. And snorkeling is superficial. You are swimming, but you are looking at the fish, right? I love snorkeling in the summer. It's my favorite summer activity. But when I go snorkeling, I need certain equipment. That is goggles. And then my students say, oh, Aurelia, Google it. And I'm like, no. Goggles with one O is gafas del agua. All right, so you have to wear goggles and you need flippers. Flippers are aletas, and a lot of students get confused between flippers and flip-flops. So flip-flop is the sound of the chancla going on your foot, and it goes click, 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 flip-flop, flip-flop, right? So that's one way to remember. And flippers are your aletas. Right? We also have a pool noodle. Now, I thought it was quite funny. In Spanish, a pool noodle is called churro. I think one of my madrileña friends called it a frito. So that's what we call in English a noodle or a pool noodle. And also, sometimes when you're at the beach or when you're usually in the pool, you have a float, like a flotador, or an inflatable ring. So also, very good vocabulary, not super flojo, like some interesting words for the summer. Talking about food, there's only 2 real words that I want to, well, 3 maybe, that I want to introduce you to. So the normal vocabulary, my students are always like, ice cream, watermelon. That's fine. That's like normal good vocabulary. But some really good vocabulary is words like slushy. A slushy is a granizado, right? So people in Murcia, I don't know about the rest of Spain, but people in Murcia love a lemon granizado. Me too. And in English, we would say slushy. Now, usually slushies are not like summer orientated, a little bit, but we have slushies like when we go to the cinema or when we go to like the zoo, you have slushy. But I know in Spain, in Murcia specifically, there's granizado specifically for the summer. Another good word is lolly. Ice lolly or popsicle. It's not an ice cream. It is your congelado, el agua congelado, el zumo congelado, flash, decimos aquí en España, creo. Which is very interesting because not a lot of people know that it's called a lolly or an ice lolly. And the last one from a South African perspective, very important, no, I'm joking, is the word barbecue. Now, barbecue is the general word. It's the same in Spanish, barbacoa. But if you happen to meet another South African, we call it braai, right? And if you meet an Australian, they call it barbie. So it's interesting how every country, even though we speak the same language, every country has their own vocabulary. Right. Okay. If we have to look at some general vocabulary as in idioms or expressions, a good one is to soak up the sun. Now, soak up means absorber or empapar. It just means like a sponge. You want to go and just take in all of the sun. And obviously, it's the best activity to go to the beach and just soak up the sun. The opposite is a phrasal verb, which is cool off. And that's like to become cool, to like dejar el calor. With a shower or you jump in the pool, it's a good way to cool off. Now, maybe you are looking for some summer romance. Nothing permanent, just something temporary, a distraction, una distracción para el verano. Decimos en inglés summer fling. Right? So you say, well, I met this person at the beach and we just had a fantastic time, but he lives in a different country, so we just had a summer fling. Okay, we're coming up to one of our final things that we can do for the summer and have some summer fun, and that is having a summer bucket list. And you say, Aurelia, bucket is kubo. Yes, it is. But a bucket list comes from the expression to kick the bucket. Now, kick the bucket is to die, para morirse, right? To say goodbye to Earth. I'd say hola al cielo, right? And to have a bucket list is a very popular thing to do in English-speaking countries, and that is to make a list of all the activities and things and experiences and things that you want to buy for yourself before you kick the bucket. There's actually a film based on this with Jack Nicholson. A beautiful film if you want to watch it in the summer, right? So a summer bucket list is just, and I do this for myself. I do one every season, well, usually for like winter and summer, for example, and spring, to be honest. Murcia doesn't have an autumn. It doesn't exist. But I would if there were some fun autumnal activities to do. Maybe in where you live, you have a better autumn. But anyway, off topic. Talking about a summer bucket list. It's just some typical activities that people do in the summer that you would like to do. Go to an outdoor cinema. So where like you drive your car to a place and they have the screen like on like a big building and you can watch the cinema in your car. Something like that. Maybe you want to go to like 5 different beaches and make a list of which is the best beach. Maybe you want to travel to a new city or read a book in a different language. Listen to one English song every day. Have a picnic. There are so many different activities. Maybe you can attend a music festival. You can go camping. Maybe you want to try a new water sport. For example, I've never done paddle boarding or kite surfing. On my summer bucket list is to make a sand castle. I always go to the beach and tan, tomar el sol, which is tan, or see. And maybe this year I want to do a sand castle like when I was a kid. A lot of people enjoy doing barbecues, but maybe you'd like to make a s'more. Now, a s'more is when you have a Maria biscuit and then you have a nube, a marshmallow, and then another Maria biscuit. You make like a sandwich of a Maria biscuit, marshmallow, Maria biscuit, and you put it on the fire and you like cook the marshmallow. Oh, it's delicious. Look up s'mores if you haven't heard of a s'more before. It's more like mas con ese, s'more. Anyway, so there's so many different things that you can do. And basically, what I really want you to do this summer is aprovecharla. Like, I really want you to enjoy the season. English or no English, travel, no travel, bucket list, no bucket list. Well, I think the bucket list is a good idea. I have a bucket list. We can share our bucket lists. But really, just enjoy the season, have fun, and make beautiful memories. Otherwise, everyone, I will see you next time.
Si disfrutaste de este episodio y quieres llevar tu inglés al siguiente nivel, te invitamos a descubrir nuestros cursos online en theway.es, diseñados para mejorar tu fluidez y confianza en situaciones reales. Hemos ayudado a miles de personas como tú a transformar su aprendizaje. Visita ahora theway.es y realiza nuestro test de nivel interactivo de manera gratuita. Además, si necesitas una certificación oficial, también ofrecemos la opción de realizar el examen de MITHER cómodamente desde casa.